Ladies and gentlemen, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us at the occasion of the 25th anniversary of INBAR, joined with the second Global Bamboo and Rattan Congress. My name is Rene Kam. I work for the International Bamboo and Rattan Organization, and today is my privilege to chair this session. This session is one of the most important sessions at the Congress because we are going to talk about the ecological and socio-economic contribution of rattan to people within the context of global deforestation and climate change. As you may know, rattan, spiny palm that provides both ecological and economic benefits to the world. The global trade of rattan is estimated at 0.38 billion USD. And this economy is providing livelihood to over 700 million people around the world. It is estimated that approximately 20% of all rattan species are used commercially in the furniture industry for making basketry. So this economy is extremely important. However, it has been reported that over the recent decades, the management of rattan resources in our forest has not been sustainable. And this has led to the reduce in the volume and quality of rattan produced. So this is going to directly affect the livelihood of people who depend on this resource. Thus, against this background, during this session, with the quality speakers we have, we are going to try to improve the understanding of natural rattan, including the taxonomy and regeneration. We are going to assess the quality of potential and actual contribution of rattan to livelihood of people. And at the end of the day, we hope that we will be able to inform researchers, policymakers, practitioners, artisans on the best way forward on these. So we are going to have 5 renowned speakers and researchers in the domain of rattan and 1 keynote speaker. Our keynote speaker today is Professor Terry Sunderland, who has worked over 40 years on rattan research. He is currently a professor at the University of British Columbia. I've had the privilege to work on rattan with Professor Terry since 2016. Unfortunately, today he is not able to join us live because he is on the flight to Mexico, but he has been able to record a video presentation for us, and hopefully he may be able to take the Q&A session. So I would like to welcome you all, to invite you to listen keenly the presentation from Professor Terry Sunderland.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. This is Terry Sunderland speaking. I'm Professor of Tropical Forestry at the University of British Columbia and a Senior Associate with the Centre for International Forestry Research. I'm very happy to be here to be speaking to you on the socio-ecological importance of rattan in Africa. I'm going to touch on what the resource base looks like, some of the artisanal uses of rattan and the marketing, some of the policy implications of rattan in Africa and future production systems, looking at possible cultivation and commerciality. So let me begin. So the resource in Africa, in general, rattans are climbing palms in the subfamily Calamoideae, characterized by a scaly pericarp, and you can see the lower picture there, the sort of snakeskin like scales on the fruit. And until relatively recently, we had a very poor understanding of the taxonomy of African rattans, despite their economic importance, which I'll talk about. We now know there are 22 species of rattan in Africa, and this is very poor in terms of diversity compared to Southeast Asia, where there are around 600 species. And interestingly, only very few of these are of commercial use and importance. But of course, a robust taxonomic framework is critical for the management of any resource. We need to know what things are in order to manage them. So it's important to get that taxonomic framework right. So a few years ago, we published a field guide to the rattans of Africa, and this is the account for Calamus diaratus, the only calamus representative that occurs on the African continent. We know also that the natural distribution of rattans follows the patterns of humid tropical rainforest in West and Central Africa, and particularly the areas in the red circle there is the center of diversity for African rattans, where most species occur, and has a real Guinea-Congolian presence. So we have three genera endemic to Africa: Lacosperma, Eromospatha, and Onchocalamus. These are very uniquely morphologically different to those species in Asia. And we have one representative of Calamus in the African continent, and that is Calamus diaratus. The endemic genera grow with the help of a cirrus, or climb with the aid of a cirrus, which is essentially a modified appendage extension to the end of the leaf, characterized by these acanthophylls, which are modified leaves. And the African Calamus grows by the aid of a flagellum, as they do in Southeast Asia. So rattans are used in a multiplicity of ways: baskets, fish traps, bridges, cassava sifters, and furniture, very much parallel and in common with the types of uses that you'd find in Southeast Asia. But rattan is extremely important to rural livelihoods, and we did a project that was funded by the former Department for International Development of the UK, looking at three areas in Ghana, Nigeria, and Cameroon, comparing on-road, off-road, and remote areas, settlements, and cross-border settlements in terms of understanding the integration of rattan to rural livelihoods. So, as a result of our surveys, even though rattan is an important product, farming is by far the main occupation for the majority of rural dwellers. And rattan activities, whether being an artisan or harvesting and transporting rattan, is largely a secondary occupation, and often used in times of economic necessity. So a family member is ill, medical fees need to be paid, school fees, etc. And they provide a financial safety net in many communities, for many households. But we have local scarcity of commercial species reported in all of our study zones, particularly in Ghana, and this is due to over-harvesting, and I'll touch on that in a second. So many of the households that are involved in rattan-related activities by country, we can see in Ghana, particularly the remote areas, there's many harvesters and artisans in the western region in Ghana, fewer in Nigeria, and also in Cameroon. The on-road settlements play an important role in extracting and harvesting rattan. A lot of auto consumption and sale in Cameroon, and the types of products that are fabricated are given here, and particularly the off-road settlements where substitutes for rattan products have yet to really reach the communities and the households. In terms of urban artisans, our surveys show that usually these are full-time independent establishments, predominantly male, with comparatively high levels of income, and the profit margins are also relatively high. There are periods of significant scarcity of the raw material, particularly when harvesters are occupied by farming activities, and the increasing scarcity and concomitant increase in price of raw material is due to both overexploitation and poor management of the resource. There's a relatively poor quality of the finished products and considerable scope for improved processing and rattan transformation. The educational status and sector, you see there, is primarily male-dominated activity. Most of the artisans have been to secondary school at least, and as an urban artisan, it's usually your main form of income. So what are the implications for conservation and development? I'm going to talk a little bit about the prospects for cultivation, development of sustainable harvesting methods, looking at improved processing and transformation, introducing new technologies, and what are the policy implications. So in terms of cultivation, there's a long germination period. The seeds take a long time to emerge and a long establishment phase, but cultivation is ecologically feasible. We get growth rates of 3 to 5 meters per year in some commercial species, which is considerable and comparable with Southeast Asia. There is roughly then an estimated 7 to 10 year cropping cycle, and you can see some of our trials here in Cameroon, which have yet to go to full term. However, prospects of community-based cultivation, which has been identified as a lot of donor agencies as the way forward, It's constrained by poor land and resource tenure, particularly for migrant farmers, an unwillingness to cultivate an untested product, and particularly a product that people feel that is still relatively abundant, even though it's actually not. There's no improvement in the planting material. And this issue of if it's there in the forest, why do I need to grow it? I can still, no matter how far I need to go, I can still get the raw material from the forest. So essentially, we show that although the cultivation of rattan is a feasible option ecologically, there's a lot of reluctance for farmers to take on cultivation. Sustainable wild management, basically community management of forest resources, is shifting in importance in all three countries concerned, Ghana, Cameroon and Nigeria. And they're clustering species, most of the species that we're talking about here, so they can be managed in a coppice system as part of diversified livelihood strategies. And there's also rattan agroforestry, particularly in Southeast Asia. Rattan agroforestry can mimic natural forests in a multi-strata system, managed for a wide range of goods and services. And there's also high carbon value to these systems and extremely resilient to both economic and environmental shocks. But unfortunately, the opportunity costs of other land uses, transformation to oil palm, for example, often undermine these traditions, particularly in Southeast Asia. So we introduced, in collaboration with the Forest Research Institute of Malaysia, training modules looking at new technologies for processing and transformation. And we saw considerable improvements in both the quality and then, of course, the incomes of target artisans in Cameroon and Nigeria. So just going back to this issue of gender, why is this such a male-dominated activity? Well, it's a fairly unpleasant activity, and the perception is that that there are certain products that are harvested by men and certain products that are harvested by women. And this is a reference to a publication that discusses that in considerable detail. The rattans do provide some edible materials. The growing point or palm heart is something that's harvested by a lot of rural communities and contribute considerably to nutritional value of local diets, particularly levels of vitamin B. Future markets, we hear about the growing rattan market in terms of particularly the high-end stage of production. And this has had a lot of focus in the press in recent years, and looking at people looking for more sustainable forest products. And in that regard, rattan certification and development with the private sector has come to the fore. And IKEA have a program now looking at the sustainability of rattan in Indonesia. So in conclusion, basically these non-timber forest products, particularly rattan, are very important for rural livelihoods and provide an important economic safety net. They comprise one of the largest components of rural non-farm employment and income generation. And we know that the harvesting of non-timber forest products is considerably less ecologically destructive than timber or other forest resource use. It's highly profitable, but we're constrained by the increasing scarcity of resources. We need urgently to manage these resources much better. And the introduction of processing and transformation technologies has proved to have some positive development impacts. And this is a great example of South-South cooperation, which could be further exploited. But we know that NTFPs, including rattan, are part of the informal economy, characterized by private settlement during its transformation, and very little income generated from these highly profitable resources ends up in the formal forest economy. We need to basically develop guidelines and implement guidelines for the NTFP harvest and trade in the forestry codes of producer countries. And much rattan-related income is gained by outsiders, and so it becomes a free resource, essentially, which leads to open access from external harvesters, and they have no consideration for the long-term sustainability. So rattan systems and the SDGs, we can see there are links with very strong links, hence the red, with many of the SDGs, particularly reducing poverty, life on land, climate action, etc. And also they contribute to the other SDGs, many of the other SDGs, in zero hunger, the nutritional value, and people are able to generate income to purchase food from markets, etc., responsible consumption and production, etc. So there's these kind of resources can contribute significantly to sustainable development overall. And at that point, I will finish, and thank you very much for your attention, and I look forward to taking any questions.
We really want to thank Professor Terry Sunderland from the University of British Columbia, who is also co-organizer of this session on this very groundbreaking presentation, which really set the scene of the potential of Rattan in terms of ecological contribution to the different forest strata that we have, in terms of economic, which is highly profitable. It creates a lot of employment. It can play a role in helping countries to achieve some of their sustainable development goals commitment. But however, Professor Terry Sunderland exited by providing some actions that we need to take in terms of developing guidelines on how to sustainably manage it and make a business out of it. So I'll invite all those online to be able to start typing in their questions that we are going to take. From Professor Terry Sunderland, we are going to move to our next speaker, who is Dr. Li Rongsheng. Dr. Li Rongsheng is a holder of a PhD in silviculture from the Chinese Academy of Forestry. He finished his thesis on water use efficiency among 3 rattan species in southern China, and has spent the past 20 years working on rattan. Today, his presentation is a groundbreaking one because he's going to look at the comparison or the relationship between water and rattan. And to make things easy, he has recorded a video. He's personally online. We are going to play his video, and Dr. Li Rongsheng is going to take the Q&A session. So I will invite our technical team to play the video of Dr. Li Rongsheng.
Ladies and gentlemen, good day to you all. I'm Li Rongsheng from the Research Institute of Tropical Forestry of the Chinese Academy of Forestry. It's my honor to be here with you at the site meeting. I'm going to talk about the relationship of water with rattan. Firstly, let's know something about water and its relationship to deforestation and climate change. We touch water every day. Water is essential for our life, living, and social development. It is in forms of precipitation, moisture, or flooding, and so on in different places or media. It is recycled in and between life and social, air and soil, land and ocean. Now let me turn to the global deforestation and climate change. Global deforestation and climate change are widely recognized challenges bringing concern through the world. Water cycle is one of key processes changed by the global deforestation and climate changes, which leads to more flooding, storms, water stress, and drought. In context of global deforestation and climate change, for the sustainable development of rattan sector, it is important to know how this change impacts rattans and how rattan, the climate, and all response to the changes. That's why I focus on the relationship of water and rattan. How this water process changed impact rattans. As early as 1990s, researchers have shown that rattan seeds lose water rapidly if they are harvested and stored with exposure to air at rooms. As the 2 figures shows, for seeds of Demonolop Jenkinsiana, moisture content decreased with time if they are stored with exposure to air at room or decrease with decreasing of water content or media. Moisture content is kept at 30% if they are stored in cocoa coir with moisture content at about 60%. Germinated rate is highest in seeds with moisture content more than 29%, decrease rapidly along decrement of moisture content seeds less than 29, which is tested by both studies on Demonolop jenkinsiana and Calamus mana. As we know, seeds produced new individual, so it's informed above that global deforestation and climate change impact Rattan regionalization and distribution. Global deforestation and climate change also impact on Rattan growth. My studies show that water stress reduced Rattan growth in the following index. First is leaf recruitment. As the table shows, for seedlings of Demonolop jenkinsiana, leaf recruitment decreased significantly when soil moisture content is less than 57% of saturated soil moisture content. So does the length of plant above ground part, but it's not significantly to root length, dry weight, biomass, and index for productivity. It decreased with increment of water stress. However, water use efficiency increased significantly for seedlings growth in soil moisture content and 45% of saturated moisture content and other treatment. Upon a decrement of Rattan growth by water stress, it infers that global deforestation and climate change is to reduce productivity of Rattan. The capacity of Rattan supply is decreasing. It's the case of in Hainan Island. Annual amount of canes collected is decreased from 10,000 in 1950s to 5,000 tons in 1980s, then to 200 tons at the beginning of this century. The talk above is the effect of water stress on Rattan. Then let's go to another side, how Rattan acclimate or responsible to these changes. As we know, there are about 600 species of Rattan palms. Species diversity is relatively abundant and provides Rattan resilience to water stress. Stomata is an organ to curb water transpiration. Its number is an index to justify the ability to resist water stress or drought. As shown in the table, among these species, Demonolop jenkinsiana don't have any stomata on the up space or face, and have a least number of stomata on below lower epidemic surface of leaf. This means Demonolop jenkinsiana has higher resistance to water stress or drought than the other two species, so it acclimated to drier situation caused by global deforestation and climate change. In terms of water use efficiencies, is higher in Demonolop jenkinsiana than in a smaller stem species, but the equivalent to species with stem diameter at the same class. Thus, species diversity is critical to survive in global deforestation and climate change. Finally, let's turn on to the how much water Rattan conserved. Let's see a video. Water is dripping from fresh Rattan stems. It's estimated that 150 to 250 meters of water dripping out of a stem or stem. However, there's no water dripping for stem harvest at dry season. This is water conserved by living plant. We also measure how much water can be conserved by Rattan liter. Its flow measured that Rattan liter are able to hold water as much as 2 times all their weight. Water in wet season is conserved longer into dry season. So in ecological aspect, Rattan has factor of functions of peak shaving and water refilling in terms of water, along with other plants in forest. This is the ecological contribution of Rattan in terms of water. That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much for this very informative presentation. I have been able to note the direct relationship between the growth of rattan and climate change, especially with water stress. And we've also been able to see that climate change is a threat to rattan growth, and this does impact the livelihood of all those who are depending on rattan. And the good news is that species diversity help rattan to stand with the water stress. So this is one of the recommendations that Professor Leronchon is spreading out, that when we are establishing rattan plantation, it is good to insist on species diversity. Dr. Leronchon will be able to take questions at the Q&A session. Our next presenter is Professor Jianfeng Ma from the International Center for Bamboo and Rattan. I have known him for a very long time because we studied together at Beijing Forestry University in China. So today he's going to present on the graded variations in ultrastructure and topochemistry of rattan cane, and he's going to emphasize on the species Calamus simplicifolius. So Dr. Jianfeng is joining us from HQ. So Prof, if you are in, the floor is yours. It seems we are not able to have Professor Jianfeng. I will introduce Dr. Alberto. So he works for the Greenbelt Development, and he holds a PhD. He's from Italy, and today he's going to share with us groundbreaking research on how Rattan is contributing in the medicinal field, especially in bone replacement. So this is significant achievement in research, showing that not only nature is able to feed us, but also helping us to be more healthy. So, Dr. Alberto, thanks very much for honoring us with your presence. The floor is yours for your presentation. Please go ahead, share your screen, and start your presentation.
Can you see the presentation?
It's starting? Yes. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. Good morning to everybody. I'm Alberto Ballardini, and I'm from Greenbelt Norto, and I work in the research and development department. The company proposes to create a synthetic bone substitute with regenerative properties in order to be resorbed. And so a bone substitute must be recognized by the cells in such a way that it can enter in the cell turnover, capable of dissolving and redepositing bone in order to be recognized by cells. A scaffold needs two fundamental characteristics: to have a chemical composition like that of natural bone, and to have a micro and macro structure like that of bone. Thanks to these two signals, the cells can recognize the scaffold and integrate it within the bone turnover. The scaffold will then be resorbed, and new functional bone will be deposited. This approach is called biomimetic, and the research and production of biomimetic materials is a very popular research field in different sectors. It involves taking inspiration from what nature has already built for a specific purpose and reproducing it. Look at some examples. The fins of the whale have this shape created in millennia of evolution to move fluids as effectively as possible. And we have copied them to create wind turbines, which have the same function. And so termite mounds capable of cooling themselves in the desert were used as a model to create buildings capable of dissipating heat. Shark skin for antibacterial surfaces, burdock flowers to create Velcro, kingfisher beak for the nose of trains, or lotus flower for self-cleaning surfaces. How is this strategy applied to bone? Bone is a complex structure. There is currently no engineering system capable of creating a bone substitute model with the necessary precision. It was therefore decided to use a natural template as a model to create a scaffold with the same structure as natural bone. It was initially thought to use coral as a model for the scaffold, and various experiments have been made for the chemical conversion of coral into calcium phosphate, but the road has been largely abandoned due to problems related to the size and availability of the coral. It was therefore decided to use wood. Wood has many of the functions of bone in nature. It must have the ability to support mechanical loads. It must be light, and it must be porous in order to carry fluids. And this is where Rattan comes into play. At the East Extensionary Institute in Faenza, many different wood species, such as pine, cipher, or oak, were studied. These studies showed how the Rattan structure with a vertical stem with a few branches is very similar to bone. It has a large axial channel with a size of hundreds of micrometer, and therefore with a size suitable for a cell passage. These canals have structures very similar to osteon, present in bone tissue. It also has a multitude of transverse channels capable of connecting the entire structure, ranging in the size from micrometer to nanometer. Going into more detail, in the comparison between rattan and bone tissue, we see how both fabrics are hierarchically organized in progressive order of complexity. Despite they are composed of different molecules, their 3D structure and organization are very similar. This is because nature has found through evolution that this organization is functional for structure that have to perform the same task, carry weight, but at the same time be light, porous, and capable of carrying fluids. As you can see, the structure is truly extremely complex, and current engineering techniques such as 3D printings do not allow to us to get to the same level of detail with nanometer size structure. Once selected the wood, we solved the part of our problem, as we found a 3D structure similar to bone. However, the chemistry of wood is obviously different. A series of successive chemical reactions have been developed, which applied in series give rise to the production process of the material. Its transformation must take place at well-defined temperature and pressure in order to keep the 3D structure intact. This process, which overall takes the name of biomorphic transformation, managed to convert wood into calcium phosphate, the same mineral component of bone, while maintaining the original 3D structure. Bear in mind that no one atom of the original wood structure remains in the final finished product, only the 3D structure. At the end of the process of transformation, we are able to obtain a scaffold made entirely of two different calcium phosphate, the main component of mineral phase of bone. In the scaffold are also present ions naturally present in bone, especially in young bones that are important for bone regeneration. Thanks to our final process in water at low temperature, we obtain a nanometric final crystalline structure, very similar to bone and well accepted by cell. During all the process, we were able to preserve the initial architecture and 3D structure of rattan. We were therefore able to transform rattan into a bone substitute, as it is currently CE marked and presented on the market in Italy from this year. This bone substitute has currently been used on more than 60 patients worldwide without the occurrence of adverse event and with excellent result from the point of view of healing and regeneration. Thanks for your attention, Alberto.
Alberto, thanks very much for this very nice presentation. Personally, I've always been amazed by this innovative application of rattan in the field of medicine. I think it holds great potential. And for us to be able to supply sustainably rattan resources to support this innovative application, there is need to establish plantation and to sustainably manage them. I'm happy that you'll be there and you'll be happy to take questions during the Q&A session. So we are coming back to my friend, Professor Jiang Fengma from the International Center for Bamboo and Rattan. I'm happy that he's back on his position. As I was saying, I've known him for many years, starting at Beijing Forest University, where I did my engineering course in forestry. And today he's going to present on graded variations in the ultrastructure and topochemistry of rattan cane, looking at the species Calamus simplicifolius. So he's working as key laboratory researcher of the bamboo and rattan science and technology at ICBR. Professor Jenfema, the floor is yours.
Thank you for your introduction of moderator. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ma Jianfeng from ICBR. It's really a great honor to have the opportunity to introduce the recent progress of rattan research, especially the graded variations in the ultrastructure and topochemistry of rattan wool. As an important non-wood resource in the tropical and subtropical forests, rattan is of great societal, economical, and ecological values. At present, the rattan cane was widely used as raw materials or for indoor furniture, decorative panels, and some new materials such as the bone, just as previous reporters introduced. In order to further promote the development of the rattan industry, it is necessary to give a further investigation of the basic structures, including the physical and the chemical structures of the rattan materials. In the past 40 years, there are a lot of works to do to reveal the structure of the rattan, including the anatomical and ultrastructures features, and the macro and micro mechanics, and the cell development of rattan. Especially recent years, the porous 3D rattan biotemplate for catalysis and carbon-based materials was widely concerned. For our team, we think about that we should look at the traditional structures, especially the anatomical and ultrastructure, from a chemical view. So we combine the different approaches, such as wet chemistry analysis or imaging techniques, to further reveal the chemical compositions of the rattan cell wall. As we know, for the hardwood and softwood, it has a band area called a cambium zone, and divided and differentiated into phloem and xylem. While for the rattan biomass, from SEM image, we can see that it does not have the cambium zone and the xylem ray. It displayed the typical vascular bundles surrounded by the parenchyma. The outermost layer of the rattan cane is epidermis. It has a polygon outline. In order to detailed visualization of the cell wall morphology of rattan, we separated the rattan cane with sodium chloride to observe the morphology of the rattan cell wall. It can be seen from the confocal laser scanning microscopy images that the rattan also contains lots of different cells, including parenchyma fibers and lots of epidermis, especially at the outermost layers of rattan. Its anatomy displays the typical features, just like grass species such as Miscanthus sinensis. Further, we also visualize the inorganic elements distribution of the rattan biomass by using the EDS image, we found that there are a lot of inorganic elements existed in the bamboo, especially the outermost layer. From the image, we can see from the image D and E, we can find that there are a lot of silicon and calcium existed in the outermost epidermis, and some of them existed in the vascular bundles areas. Further, we try to find the outer structure differences of the rattan with the softwood, hardwood, and some grasses. The right side image is a typical cell wall model of softwood. We can see that it can be the second wall of the hardwood can be divided into 3 layers: the outer layer, the inner layer, and the middle layer and the inner layer. For the grass species, its second wall divided into a layering structure. By using the TM image, we found that for rattan materials, a second wall also divided into broad and narrow layering structure. After the lignification with sodium chloride, we found that the CCML areas has a fibrillar structures. We detected these areas mainly composed of pectin and some xylem. After interpreting the outer structure and anatomy of the rattan, we further use a confocal Raman microscopy to reveal the chemical compositions of these areas. When comparing the average Raman spectra from between rattan, bamboo, Miscanthus sinensis, poplar, and pinus, we found that the average spectra, there are 2 main areas with a strong Raman signal. The first one is from the 1500 to 1600. It's mainly from the lignin-related band. Another areas is from 1000 to 1200. It's cellulose-related Raman band. Interesting that previously we believe that the rattan has a herbaceous species-like anatomy. Maybe its chemical compositions is more like the more like the grasses. Interestingly, we found that its Raman spectra is more like looks more like the poplar and the pinus, because the 1173 Raman signal is a typical grass signal for is a typical grass Raman signal, while it's absent in the rattan, poplar, and pinus. By integrating over the characteristic Raman band at from 2897 to 3000, we can visualize the overall morphology of rattan cane. From the figure A, we can observe the morphologically distinct cell wall layers, such as the cell corner, medulla, secondary wall. Also, we can observe the layering structure of the rattan cane cell wall. By integrating over the lignin band at 1598, we can observe the distribution of the lignin within the cell wall of rattan cane. Also, we use a confocal laser scanning microscopy to observe the lignin distribution with the cell wall layers. We can see that there are a high level of lignin concentration within cell wall, with the cell corner, medulla, and the outer layer of the fiber cell wall. Also, we can observe the carbohydrates distribution and xylem and cellulose distribution by integrating over the characteristic Raman band. Overall, the carbohydrates, including xylem and cellulose, displayed a homogeneous distribute pattern within the fiber wall of rattan. In order to further review the molecular structures of the rattan, we separated the lignin, hemicellulose, and cellulose from the rattan cane. The lignin was separated by the DEIO approach, which was proposed by Professor Wen Jialong from Beijing Forestry University. From the molecular weight analysis, we found that for the lignin located at the rattan bark and rattan core, the polymerization degrees of lignin in the rattan core is slightly higher than that of bark. A similar polydispersity but low PDI values suggesting that these lignin fractions from rattan are homogeneous compared to other biomaterials. Also, we use the NMR analysis to detect the lignin compositions. It can be seen that the rattan cane contains SG and H units. Interestingly, we found that there exists the hydrobenzoate signals, which is a typical signal from the wood biomass. Surprisingly, we found that there is an absence of the carbon-carbon bond or substructures for the rattan materials. This typical features gives the rattan biomass a excellent raw materials for biorefinery, because these less condensed structures can easily be degraded. Also, we detect the hemicellulose composition. Cellulose is the dominant monosaccharide, reaching to more than 95% based on the total monosaccharides. Both the hemicellulose from RB and RC are almost entirely composed of cellulose, indicating that these hemicellulose are xylons with more linear structures. The NMR analysis of hemicellulose indicated that the alkaline extractable hemicellulose is composed of beta-1,4 xylon background with 4O alpha-D glucuronic acid attached to the O2 position. A ratio of xylo to uronic acid of 23 and 20 for the RB hemicellulose and RC hemicellulose respectively. Also, we try to find the contributions of lignin and hemicellulose to the macromechanics. We use the successive extraction method to gradually remove lignin and hemicellulose. We found that reduced lignin results in obvious decrease in NI hardness, while the removal of hemicellulose mainly contributed to the variations of NI modulus. In the future, we think there are still a lot of things to do for the rattan research. We think the macro, because the weight of the rattan sheaths takes up more than 40% of the rattan weight. So the anatomy of the rattan sheaths and is also in quite important areas to investigate. The rattan displayed excellent flexibility compared to wood biomass and the rattan bamboo biomass. Thus, the origin of the flexibility of the rattan is also quite important issues. Compared to wood and bamboo materials, the porosity of system of the rattan is well developed, and its porosity distribution and connectivities should be further investigated, which can be used as the biological template for porous biochar and the template for catalysis synthesis. We have revealed that the molecular structures of the rattan lignin is easily degraded. So it's an excellent raw materials for biorefinery, especially for the production of chemicals. For the rattan industry, at present, there is urgent need for the development of the rattan modification techniques, especially for outdoor utilization. At present, the harvesting and pollution weaving of the rattan industry is labor intensive. So the development or the research of the rattan equipment is quite important. The report was supported by a lot of distinguished researchers, including Professor Liu Xing'e. She's our team leaders, and Professor Wang Kanglin from Southwest Forestry University, and Li Rongsheng from the Chinese Forestry Academy, and other distinguished doctors. We also give many thanks to Professor Ma Xinxin. She gives a lot of support for our 3D SEM imaging. Thank you for your kind attention.
Gemma Jennifer, thanks very much for the very nice presentation. I think the key information that we need to take from here is that in terms of biorefinery, Rattan has huge potential, and it is important that that is capitalized. You also mentioned the important percentage of the rattan sheet, which is almost 40%, and that we need to develop ways to make this economically viable. I think your presentation is very complementary to that of Alberto in terms of providing technical insights on the ultrastructure comparison of rattan with timber. I think that is very nice. Our next presenter is one of my special friends from Malaysia, Dr. Wan Tarmaze, with whom I've been working for the past 7 years. So Dr. Wan is a senior research officer with the Forest Research Institute of Malaysia since 1989. He's a holder of a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Oregon University. He has taken a lot of research on mechanized automated manufacturing processes of bamboo and rattan product. He obtained his Master of Science from the University of Malaysia and a PhD from Birmingham University in the UK. Recently, he has been promoted to the role of director at the Malaysian Forest Research Institute. He's currently the chair of our task force on rattan. And today, Professor Wan is really bringing in a topic which fits very well with one of the key aspects of this Congress, which is how can we reduce our use of plastic? So far, the potential of bamboo as a plastic substitute has been emphasized, but the role of rattan has not been. So Professor Wan is going to dive deep into that with a very, very nice presentation. So I will invite the technician team to share the video of Dr. Wan, who is then going to take the Q&A session. After Dr. Wan, we still have one presenter, which is going to be Dr. Beatrice, who is joining us from Ghana. So the technical team, please, can you play the video for Dr. Wan?
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of my presentation is not about rattan technology or scientific breakthrough, but it rather about how rattan can help us in fighting the climate change, habitat loss, and other environmental issues we are facing today. Some of us are thinking about fleeing away to Mars. I hope when they are living on Mars, they will not pollute that planet as we did to the Earth. Looking at the bright side, we as human beings have the technologies and resources to do beyond our needs. If we are capable of sending vehicles to Mars and later to construct buildings there, it means that we are also capable to repair the earth if we set our mind to do it. Let us change our attitude and habits of doing things. I found this statement in the internet that could reflect how we have been utilizing the plastic. It says that plastic is made to last forever, but the products from it are designed to be thrown away. The web page says that mass production of plastic started in the 50s, right after the World War II, with annual production of about 1.7 million tons. Fast forward, in 2014, the global plastic production was 311 million tons. And if we do not change the rate of plastic production and usage trends, the annual production will reach 2 billion tons in 2050. And we are going to have more and more of these mountains of plastic waste. I do not want to brag on or elaborate this situation, for I believe everybody has known about it. Therefore, let us not blame the plastic, but blame ourselves if we had not been using and managing plastic appropriately. Plastic has its own advantages as a material. It is up to us to utilize it optimally and to manage its disposal without harming the environment. And I am pretty sure that there are efforts being carried out by many parties across the world to make plastic as material of circular economy more than of linear economy. A little explanation on linear versus circular economy. In linear economy, we take materials from the nature, we make a product, we use the product, and when we do not want the product anymore, we dispose it, and in the whole process, we pollute the earth. In circular economy, of course, we started by taking some material from the nature to make products that we use and reuse. But when we do not need to use the products anymore, we can utilize the parts to make other products or recycle as new materials. And when we have to dispose the product or the parts, we make the disposal process useful and has least negative impact on the environment. So far, we have discussed among the actions or ways we can take to lessen the negative impacts plastic has on the earth. Plastic products should be designed to last longer in the circular economy. And we must have methods and technology to dispose them more sustainably. Another way is we have to stop producing the plastic products that before this we did not even need plastic to make them. What do I mean by saying this? Okay, let us see the plastic products here. They are the items commonly found in our homes, aren't they? The basket, boxes, container, etc. made from plastic. Are we all aware that these types of products were made from rattan before, way before plastic was invented? These beautiful rattan laundry baskets are also available online nowadays. Some of us may think that rattan baskets are more expensive than the plastic baskets. But if we think rattan baskets are more beautiful, more accepted by our children or grandchildren when we have to pass the products down to them, or easier to resell, then we should not be hesitant to buy rattan baskets. We will also help the women and rural communities because most rattan products are made by them. And we will not pollute the environment when the rattan products are disposed at dumping sites. But if we still want to keep buying plastic baskets, our plastic basket may end up in the oceans, like in this picture. What about the single-use plastic issue? Can rattan help solving this? Single-use plastic products are used once or for a short period of time before being thrown away. One example of these products is the mineral water bottle that has been part of our lifestyle. Let us see the following scenario. John Doe and family is going to a beach vacation. Because the beach is a hot place, they will need to drink plenty of water there. Hence, they bought a lot of mineral water in plastic bottles. And John Doe is blessed with a car that has built-in 12 cup holders to put the mineral water bottle in. If they needed more cup holders, he can purchase more from the store. Off they go to the pristine beach. And when they leave the beach, they do not bring back the bottles because their cup holder have to be emptied for new mineral water bottles. Some of the bottles end up on the beach, in the water, and even on the coconut trees. Can rattan stop this? I do not have the exact answer. But let us look at the following slide. We can do this. In the first place, we do not need plastic bottles. We have been having this glass bottle wrapped in rattan wickers since ages to carry water everywhere with us. Why can't we make a lifestyle out of this? Glass bottle is highly reusable and glass is 100% recyclable. With the cashless technology today, to have a mineral water dispenser machine at a petrol station or anywhere is not a rocket science thing. Even a primary school student can design this. Before I end this presentation, please remember, use less plastic and use more rattan. Thank you.
Dr. Wan, thanks very much for your presentation. I particularly appreciate your pure science approach. Even the way the presentation is made is very innovative. And I would tell you that if you were a political leader, I would vote for your party. I think we need to use less plastic and more rattan. And your presentation has triggered so many questions in my head, and I'm happy that during the Q&A session we are going to talk about that. You have actually talked about very important aspects, because today about 80% of office trash cans are made of plastics. Hotel laundry baskets are made of plastics. And if you look at the number of hotels we have in our cities, the number of offices, and in each office, we are likely to have a trash bin. So if all of this is substituted with rattan, and in Cameroon in particular, most of the waterways are blocked by plastic bottles. And I think it could be a way, if we could go back to the glass bottle with this rattan wrapping, that would not only protect it, but make it also more carryable. And I also think that the policy has to come in to be able to discourage the use of this plastic bottle. Thanks very much for that groundbreaking presentation. I think we are going to have an interesting Q&A session. But before we move that, we have the privilege today to have Dr. Beatrice Darko-Biri, who is principal researcher in natural resources and agroeconomics. She's the deputy director of the Forestry Research Institute of Ghana and senior lecturer at the Science and Technology College of Ghana. She has also worked for many international organizations, including INBAR, ITTO, International Food Policy Research, etc. And today, we are happy to have her. She's going to bring in a presentation on greening the value chain for inclusive industrial development towards global trade. And I think this word greening echoes back to this circular economy, sustainable management of our resources. And it's very important because she's going to bring us a perspective from Africa, which is very important because we have rattan in the western coast of Africa. Dr. Beatrice is also a serving member of our task force on rattan, and I've had the privilege to work with her over the past 7 years. Dr. Beatrice, I hope you should be able to share your screen and start your presentation. The floor is yours.
Sorry for interruption, Dr. Beatrice, please, you are muting yourself. Please open your microphone. Yes. That's okay.
So I'm mute. Good morning, everyone. I'm sorry, I have to be struggling a little with my presentation, but I think I'm nearly there.
I think you have to share your screen. Good. Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah. Okay.
Now full screen.
Yes, I'm going full screen. Yeah. So can I start?
Good. Please, you can start. Yeah. Over to you.
All right. So once again, good morning from Ghana. I prepared a PowerPoint somehow capturing global issues, a little of Africa and a little on Africa. Okay. So for my presentation, the heading is Greening the Value Chain for Inclusive Industrial Development Towards Global Trade. Okay, so I have a content, a little on global issues in green industry.
Dr. Beatrice, sorry to interrupt you. You are not full screen.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. So is it okay now?
Now it's okay. Perfect. Thank you. Over to you.
Okay, so I'll talk briefly about global green industry and trade, and then we'll look at the status of the rattan value chain across the world with some Africa perspective. Then we'll see how we can green the value chain for inclusive industrial development towards global trade. Okay, so the concept of greening value chains has been with us recently, although somehow some aspect was being practiced earlier. It's basically responsible production to consumption systems that ensure environmental sustainability, mainly to abate pollution, thereby contribute to climate change mitigation and/or adaptation. It also promotes efficient use of resources, and therefore there's a need for diversification, reducing waste for higher value at optimum or maximum profit. By this, we can ensure diversified products from multiple market niches. We can ensure sustainable and resilient inclusive development, and we can promote sustainable job creation along the value chain. It also seeks to promote economic and social well-being of actors in the value chain. So we have issues with fair or premium pricing. Production must have social safeguards, also must have gender equality, especially women and youth involvement. Okay, so if we come to the rattan value chain, its status at the moment, we heard that there are about 600 species worldwide, and mainly it is in natural forests that we exploit these resources in Southeast Asia and Africa, as seen in the green patches in the world map, in the Africa and Asia map, let me call it that way. Okay, so technology and development.
Dr. Beatrice, sorry to interrupt, please. Can you adjust your camera because we are not able to see you well.
Processing and manufacturing of a product. And so this process is actually largely characterized by drudgery and injury, especially among artisans. And then the drudgery in the sense that a skilled weaver, for instance, can use up to 3 days to make a lampshade and about a month or more to weave a large stopper. So that is the state of technology and product development. Mostly manual and labor-intensive processing, higher value processing and more innovative product designs in Asia and some Western countries, but limited value addition and product designs in Africa. So you can see the photos where we have artisans in Nigeria struggling, and then we have another company in the UK trying to turn the same canes into woven products. Okay, so rattan in global green trade, yes, we are made aware that it's one of the world's valuable non-timber forest products, and it has contributed significantly to some economies as a natural flexi-weave material over centuries. At the moment, it's been appreciated as a natural healthy option for green consumers, and global market is growing and may move towards North America. There's a wide range of commercial applications which could improve rattan product sales and market growth. There are various figures that are being mentioned as the market potential. There are staggering figures by different research companies. It could further threaten, but this could further threaten natural rattan resources. INBAR in 2019 estimated the global rattan trade as around 835 million USD, with Asia Pacific supplying about 82%. Europe and North America are the main consumers, consume about 73%. So that's the percentage share I've put in charts for the export sector and for the consuming sector. Okay, so there are 3 main groups of products in trade at the moment. The woven products and furniture dominate about 92% of the trade. Asia Pacific tops the export. Europe tops the import. North America tops the import. And we have Africa and Central and South America import less. And you can see that the exports are nearly zero, which means South and Central America and Africa are less participants on the rattan global market. So by product share, we see that woven products contribute about a share of about 49% on the world trade, while furniture is about 43% and raw materials is only 8%. So a variety of products, mainly the basket for various uses, furniture for aesthetic green living. We have rattan in high-end construction. This is normally in Asia, where it is advanced in various architecture. Then we have various high-end accessory math bags, and so forth, several of them. Then, as a colleague from Italy talked about, I captured this from the net. This is Rattan in healthcare, bone grafting and bone transformation, as he talked about earlier on. So the economic potential of Rattan has been mentioned over and over again, but we understand that it provides employment and contribute to GDPs in countries, especially Asia, where about 1 million people are in it. Then it also contributes about 1% of GDP of some of these Asian countries. But when it comes to Africa, there's limited contribution to the GDP, basically because we have very limited export market trade, and it's more of produced for domestic consumption. Gender and youth inclusiveness of the Rattan industry is high, such that it is jobs for everyone. Everybody can participate. We have the male dominating in extraction and transport. We have both men and women and youth involved in processing, and both gender could also involve in trade and marketing of the product. Yeah, so now we come to barriers to inclusive green industry for global trade. As the industry was growing over centuries, there was limited attempts to make any commercial cultivation in plantations or even in agroforestry systems, mainly because the species is a climber and want to rest on top of large tropical forest trees. And its cultivation or domestication was never an issue because there was a lot of forest. Now that the forest is declining, deforestation is increasing in almost all tropical countries. The resource is threatened, and with limited cultivation and plantations, the drive to support an industrial growth becomes questionable in the future. There's also limited production technology and know-how in use of advanced machinery to reduce drudgery emanation. There's a lot of it is done by hand. Then there's limited value addition leading to poor access to higher value green product markets, as I've indicated, especially by African producers. There's also limited policy and fiscal interventions to support green growth generally, and more so in Africa. These are not really even in existence. Then limited research for green products and market development. And again, some research is going on, but in Africa, we have had less of that happening. So advancement of the industry is really questioned when it comes to contributing to global green industry and trade. Now, so the first thing we will need, of course, to talk about when we want to contribute to inclusive industry and global trade is to look at a sustainable and quality resource supply across the globe, wherever rattan is at the moment being extracted from natural forest. The reliable stream of quality raw material canes will be required to sustain global trade. Without that, the rattan plantations of desirable species for quality raw material for products beyond furniture and baskets are needed. So far, most of it is furniture and basket, and then we have seen that now we are going into bones, into other uses, chemical bags, whatever. So by all means, we need to look at species that we can quickly turn around to satisfy other product niches. And then by doing this, we are likely to link rural communities in producing countries to strong international supply chains, thereby creating sustainable jobs and new markets. Now, at the moment, research I'm doing is showing that there's competition from synthetic flexi weaving material, which is approaching us if we do not do anything to restore the natural stands in tropical forest. So I've shown here the flexi material in different colors, which can also be used equally for weaving. Then when it comes to technology and capacity building in green technology, we need investment in green technology for efficient processing and product manufacture, especially adapting to low-cost automation mechanization to improve productivity. So in the splitting, curing, bending, spraying for finishing, we need to have something that we can use that we mechanize it a little to reduce drudgery. In doing that, we also need to think about attractive and innovative product designs, as we see on the market at the moment, especially in baskets, several forms, and even in furniture. And then we also need to think about conversion of waste to higher value products, because whilst all these volumes are being churned, there's a lot of waste that are generated, and we need to make very good use of it if we want to satisfy the global green environment. Now, there's also the need for technical capacity enhancement to polish skills of artisans. Some artisans in Ghana have had working in rattan industry for about 40 years, and they are still doing very limited value addition. So we really want to enhance their capacity to polish their skills. And then also the SMEs in rattan processing, product manufacturing and trade with respect to green industry. Green industry is new. Most often what they are doing, they just do it for a livelihood. But if you want to make it as an industry, then we need to up the game in terms of capacity development. And so I said that in product diversification, for instance, we have waste recovery for new value-added products. So we have conversion of waste or residue generated for processing and product manufacture for other uses. For instance, we could do pelleting for fire or heating, briquetting for fire or heating, activated charcoal for cosmetic and pharmaceutical industry, biochar as a soil amendment in farming, especially in these days that even in Africa we are experiencing declining soil fertility. Okay, so the market environment generally across the globe and even in Africa, high value aesthetic products are required on markets to create demand to stimulate inclusive industrial green growth. But if you want to enter the international market, then the standards and certification for access to green premium pricing market is paramount. So there are rigid entry requirements for international market niches, and it concerns standards and certification to meet the green economy requirement. You need eco labels and attractive, innovative, high-end use products to be able to make stimulate the demand that will create jobs for the producing countries and for even the trade in general. Business environment. There seems to be advancement in Asian economies with eco labels, for instance, the FSC certification in some countries. But in Africa, most of the businesses are self-financing. So, and in Africa, at the same time, we have high cost of borrowing with many entrepreneurs doing self-financing. And so with this, there's limited value addition, no standards, and no eco labels for green market, economy market in Africa. The SMEs have limited business orientation for green and inclusive trade. So we will need to promote entrepreneur development models and business advisory services for green growth. With the policy, as I've said already, we need clear policy direction and external support for inclusive economic advancement of the rattan industry, especially in Africa. Then we have to have some tax incentives that can reduce production and cost of equipment for efficient higher end processing. There's also the need for policy support. Actually, the private sector-led development is the way to go, especially in producing countries, to improve access to global market for green growth. And then to stop it all, we need support to do research for green product innovation, especially in Africa. So in summary and conclusion, I will look at the value chain as it is illustrated on the screen. If you want an inclusive green industrial development for global trade, then we are looking at all aspects of the value chain. We need a guaranteed raw material. In that, we need resource availability, diversity, quality, and we need to regulate how we assess our resources, whether from the natural stand or through plantations. We convert that, in converting that for product development, we need technology and labor for efficient conversion for higher end use products for particular market niches. When we have the product, we need suitable packaging and distribution systems. So technology for quality packaging, product standardization, efficient distribution mechanisms that will minimize waste in any way. Then when we get to the market, to be able to get to the market, we need pricing, regulation, certification, standard labels, efficient storage to promote shelf life. And at consuming level, we will need high utility value that is efficient end use, which can promote long service life. Okay, so thank you. for paying attention. Sorry, I was struggling a little at the beginning because I was rushing somewhere and I had to come back to do the presentation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beatrice. It's always a privilege and honor to have you on our panel. I think your presentation is really groundbreaking in terms of what is the potential and some challenges and recommendations that we need to take up in order to improve the quality of the rattan product and value chain in Africa. So I think we have a couple of minutes for a Q&A session. At my level here, I've already been able to note down some questions. So I suggest we take our first round of questions. I've received 2 questions from Dr. Wan. So Dr. Wan, we start with you. The first question, Dr. Wan, I hope you can hear me. The first question is, what should be done to promote the use of rattan as a substitute for plastic? So that's the first question. And the second one, which is associated, is how can we improve convenience when using rattan as a substitute for plastic in terms of product weight, product design, and product availability? It looks like plastic products, they are light, they are well designed, and they are readily available. So how do we make sure that rattan can compete with that? So Dr. Wan, if you hear me, please open your video and microphone. The floor is yours.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Over to you. Yes, we can hear and see you.
Because I saw my audio something wrong, but if you can hear me, that's good. I believe your first question is what? Please repeat.
Okay, the first question is, what should be done to promote the use of rattan as a substitute for plastic? The second question is, how can we improve convenience when using rattan as a substitute for plastic in terms of product weight, product design, and product availability?
Okay, the first one, what should we do? I think we should not ask what others should do. What we should do first, because that's why my presentation say that when we say human, it is us. You know, if everybody can agree that we have to sacrifice something. You know, also some of the conveniences maybe we have to let it go. You know, but if you say what we can do, okay, now with the advance of the technologies, you know, like we call it like cashless technology, you know, maybe what we can do it. I don't say that we should replace everything that made from bamboo into rattan, you know, not all, but we pick up certain thing that we think that we can use it. I mean, the one that I said before plastic came to the human, we already use rattan and bamboo. Why must we change the usage of rattan into plastic? Okay, something like that. As you say, if we focus on the, I call it laundry basket or bins, you know, maybe what government can do is anything that made from rattan or bamboo, we can consider it as a green or circular economy product. Maybe with the advancement of technology, internet, Android system, you know, we can put a tag on the product. When somebody purchase it, the moment the cashier, you know, scan it, you know, there is information been sent to the government saying that I am as the who buy that thing is entitled to the some kind of rebate or refund, like a tax return, because we can do it easily, like now we are paying toll, paying the cashless with card, so that thing can be done easily. Okay, number two, what is you say convenience, that's why do we really need the lightness? You say the plastic is light. Do we really need that? Sometimes we need also some weight, like if you want to design a chair, sometimes plastic chair, if you test it, they are not stable. We need some sort of weight. So to say that plastic, as a material, it has advantages, but we must find something that or we have to sacrifice, not everything that when we go back to non-plastic, sometimes we have to sacrifice something. The convenience of plastic, yes. You have a plastic bottle, you bought it, you drink it, that is bad convenience, we don't want that. Yeah. So that's same thing. If you want to have Rattan, if you want to have that convenience, so that's why I say we have to change the way we live, and nobody can change anybody. It's us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Wan. My first takeaway is that we need incentives from the government. The government has to bring in some financial incentives to promote the use of Rattan, and then we as consumers, we need to change our consumption habits. So thank you very much for that, Dr. Wan. The next question we receive is to Alberto from Greenburn. Alberto, if you can hear me, this question is for you. The question is, what is the greatest challenge that Rattan is facing in the field of bone replacement? What is the greatest challenge, and how do you foresee the market? Over to you, Alberto.
We have to create a sustainable incoming of the material for us. The reproducibility of the rattan cane are a key point for us because we have to make a lot of chemical passages, and so we have to have more reproducible material from the cane, and this is the key point for us. So to create a plantation or something like this in which cane are grow in a reproducible manner.
Okay, thank you. I understand that it is to secure sustainable supply of rattan cane. That is one of your key challenges. Thanks very much. The next question I got is for Dr. Lirongshan. Dr. Lirongshan, one participant is asking, within the context of climate change, how can rattan contribute to water regulation in the forest? Does rattan play any role in the water regulation in the forest? Dr. Lirongshan, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. And
Dr. Lirongshan, so this question is for you. Within the context of climate change, how can rattan contribute to water regulation in the forest? Over to you.
I think rattan conserve water in maybe 2 or 3 ways. First, they contain water inside of the rattan stem. As rattan, the stems is porous, so they can hold much water, more water than other plant like wood, but so they hold the if the compared to other trees, they can hold more water in forest. Secondly, after they are the litter, like the leaves of the leaf shears, they also have conserved water and to improve the soil structure to hold water. I think that's the two ways to come back for conservation.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lironshal. The next question is to Dr. Jenfema from ICBR. One presenter thanks you very much for the very nice presentation. And he was asking, what is the potential of rattan to be used as a substitute for wood? Which application, based on the ultrastructure of rattan, where can we use rattan instead of using wood? Over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I think because recently our team made a lot of research by using the rattan template for the porous biochar. As you know, the rattan resources is limited, so it's distributed only small areas. So we should find a new way to use the rattan resources. I think for the exploration of the high-valued carbon-based materials, such as the synthesis of the catalysis for the air purification, or for the supercapacitor electrode materials. In this way, I think rattan can replace the wood biomass. Can retain the wood bio because the porosity system, just as I see that of rattan, is well developed. For the preparation of activated wood carbon, we need a lot of chemical reagents to create the pores within the wood matrix. But for the rattan materials, because it's well-developed porous system and the connectivity, we just need nice chemical reagents to create the pores. And even we can use the physical activation methods to produce high porosity activated carbon from the rattan biomass. Also, for the biorefinery, at present, there are a lot of works to do to convert the wood biomass into bioethanol. A quite important procedure, or is called the biomass pretreatment, because the structure of the wood biomass, especially the lignin structure, is much more condensed. So we have to use intensive chemical pretreatment method to break the linkage between the lignin and hemicellulose. But for the rattan biomass, just as I shown you that the linkage of the lignin is less condensed and can be easily degraded by the chemicals. So we think we can use the rattan to convert rattan into bioethanols for more high efficient method. Of course, we should find some new methods to promote the mass of the rattan resources, because at present, because the techniques for the cultivation is still in a low level. The cultivation of the rattan resources still need further investigation. After that, we can use we can convert the the rattan biomass into bioethanol or other chemicals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I understand that there is huge potential, but we need to increase the production, the volume of production, so that we should go into biorefinery. Thank you very much. So the next question is for Dr. Beatrice. Dr. Beatrice, your presentation is well appreciated. And for this first round of question, you've had two. The first one is, rattan has been used for decades in Africa. What explains the fact that it still contributes very little to the economy of the people? That's the first question. The second question is, what should rattan artisans from Africa focus in terms of market? Should it be the domestic market or should it be the export market? Dr. Beatrice, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can see me now. Can you see me?
Yes, we can see you.
My head is showing. Yeah, because of I'm sitting on the lows too. So yeah. So yeah. The rattan resource has been part of our economy in Africa, especially in the tropical lowlands of Africa, Ghana, where we have humid forests, tropical forests. Unfortunately, in these countries, timber is the prerogative of government. Okay, so this resource has been exploited mainly as a subsistence resource from villages, and then it moved to cities where people were trying to live on it as for their main livelihood. And because it is seen as a lesser products from the forest with respect to the government, who focus more on timber rather than the non-timber forest products. Many of the non-timber forest products from our forest have remained in the dark. So that is where rattan belongs. So although it contributes to local economic improvement, it is actually not documented in most cases, so we don't see much of it. And so, because of the less emphasis on NTFPs and more concentration on timber, you find that there are really no policies, no policy actions, even if they put it in the forest policy that we are going to promote NTFPs. Actions to promote these NTFPs are nearly absent. And so the focus is that, okay, people extract and process for local market. Yes. Well, for centuries, we have had it. It is still a domestic product. I think that even on the domestic product, because we still have a lot of timber, relatively, than many other places, when people go out to purchase furniture or whatever, they will first look at wood furniture before they think about rattan. Then rattan is showcased along roadsides by artisans, and then it looks like it's for elite, you know. It's because people see it as something that is not durable, and therefore, why buy rattan rather than going to buy a wood furniture? Basket, we have used rattan basket for ages from the villages to the communities, but of late, we have had challenge with plastics, as a colleague was showing. You can see a lot of basket in the sea, the plastic basket in the sea. That is the problem we have now. So even if these artisans want to concentrate on domestic market, I presume that at the moment the product has to be more enhanced, look attractive, more to be able to capture the coming population who are more fashion oriented, you know. So during the Christmas period in Ghana, we have lots of gift baskets being produced by these artisans. By the end of the period, most of these baskets will actually will not be attractive. So we really need them build the capacity to be able to produce for domestic market first, where they turn out attractive products onto the market that can attract the current youth or the current population that look like that is more interested in aesthetics. Okay. So for the export market, I think they still have a role to play. If we can boost their capacity to be able to produce for specific markets, to be able to supply simple rattan products that can be purchased in other markets. Sometimes within our own African market, regional markets, or even the sub-regional markets, we could do production. And then before we think about the international market, which is more rigid for standards and certification in current times. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Beatrice. I will directly start with you with the second round of questions. So if you can keep your video on. The first question is to you is, why is the rattan sector so male-dominated in Africa? That's the first question. The second one is, from a government perspective, increasing or supporting the development of the rattan sector might mean a decrease in tax revenue for the government. And we know that African government, they need tax to be able to provide public services to people. How can the government strike a balance between tax revenue and supporting the development of the rattan sector in Africa? Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Rene. For male domination, in Africa, all these years, to get rattan out of the forest is a huge challenge. You can imagine the tropical forest, men have to go in and try to catch rattan and pull it from the canopies of these huge trees. So in the first place, there's a physique that is needed, which women didn't have. Okay, so in transporting the rattan, same. It's so difficult. You need to cut, you need to carry to a vantage point before a car can carry it, or you bring it home yourself. And women actually didn't think that this is work they have to do anyway. So it was male dominated and has been like that, even in processing thereabout. But when it comes to marketing, then you find that women will use rattan basket to carry foodstuffs to market to sell, or they sell it as baskets on the market. So this is how it's just because the work involved is very intensive. Even in processing for basket, the artisans complain that it's labor intensive and requires extra skill to prevent injury and so forth. So that is why it is male dominated. When it comes to government and taxes and all that, I think that this is because there's no policy at all, okay, and you want to attract people into a green industry, and we want to up the game, add value. It means we have to buy some machinery that will require some level of investment, which any newcomer that want to invest into this sector would worry about. And so there's really a need, not only for rattan, but for non-timber forest, job creation purposes, and all that. There will be a need for government to look at some of these minor forest products, as they call them, to put up a policy that will encourage entrepreneurs that want to invest into some of these products, to create job, to resource, to support livelihoods and so forth. So for me, well, there are several tax sources in the economy. And so if you want to actually bring the local people jobs, you want to encourage industrial development, you want to do this, you want to do that to save the economy. And of course, there should be a balance, and tax, especially on machinery and so forth, have to be reduced to be able to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Beatrice. I think that financial incentives from the government is still a key role in that sector. The next question is still for Dr. Wan. Dr. Wan, there is a very interesting question that I've noted. The audience says that all developed countries have made use of plastic to boost their economies to get to the level where they are now. Isn't it not very unfair for developing countries to slow down their economy because they want to stop using plastic that developed countries have taken advantage of to develop their economy. It is true that most pollution by plastic is in developing countries, but should we slow down the developing countries' economy because we want to reduce the use for plastic? Over to you, Dr. Wan.
Okay. The question, is it based on the real statistic, fact or what? Because is it really that the developed country got rich because of the plastic? I don't know. But what past is past, you know. Now the world is getting together, you know, like we have a COP, you know, things like that. So everybody agree now, okay, we have, what past is past, okay? Now let's work together. That's why we have something like carbon credit, things like that and all. So what we are going to do with Rattan is maybe a minor thing or maybe a big thing, depend. But we must start calculate now, you know. Now we should ask ourselves, why must we use plastic to make product that we didn't make it from plastic before? Something like that. So if you want to talk about okay, the developed country, I was told that they have destroyed their forest. So are we going to also destroy our forest because we want to be as rich as them? Actually, if the world agree that we don't need a plastic basket anymore, who are going to be rich? Us, because we have Rattan. They don't have Rattan. They have to purchase from us. I cannot answer that political question, you know, because it's up to us. Again, it's up to us. We want to live by the past or to the future. If you want to go to the past, go ahead. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Dr. Wan, thank you. Thank you very much. I think you've summarized it well. It is up to us that we should not walk in the footsteps of developed countries, because somewhere in their development path they have also made some mistakes, like deforestation that they've made in the past. And I also think that there should be a way to balance between environmental protection and sustainable development. So on that, I really want to thank all our esteemed speakers today. We've had a very incisive keynote presentation by Dr. Terry Sunderland from the University of British Columbia. We've had great presentation on the greening of value chain by Dr. Beatrice. Dr. Lironshan talked about the relationship between Rattan and water. Dr. Wan from the Forest Research Institute of Malaysia built a very strong argument on the potential of bamboo as a substitute for plastic. Our friend Alberto from Greenbond Auto Research and Development has made the argument on how we can use rattan for bone replacement, which is a very innovative application of rattan, but which is threatened because we need to provide sustainable resources. And my good friend, Professor Jen Fengma from the International Center for Bamboo and Rattan has brought in insight on the ultrastructure of rattan. The keynote today is that rattan is there. It provides a lot of not only ecological benefits, but also economic benefits to people. We can use rattan to reduce our use of plastic. We can use rattan for medicinal purposes. We can use rattan for water regulation in the forest. But to be able to achieve that, we need to sustainably manage the rattan resource. We need to improve planting of rattan. We need to promote agroforestry. We need to promote policy development incentives to push people towards the use of Rattan. And Rattan, as part of the product that INBAR is working on, INBAR would continue to work with all its 49 member states to develop the Rattan product so that we make a world a better place and we promote a green and circular economy focusing on Rattan. On that, I really want to thank you all, the esteemed panelists, the participants for your time. We are going to share with you the video recording of the presentation. I thank you very much, and I invite you to follow the closing session of the bag. Before we all go off, I don't know if it's possible for everybody to turn on his video so that we have a group photo of our session before we close the session. If everybody online can turn on his video for the group photo. Good.
Okay.
Good. Thank you. I've taken the group photo. I thank you all. And for those in Asia, I think it's early afternoon. It's late afternoon. I wish you a good afternoon at that level. We in Africa, we are starting our day. I wish you all a very good day, and thanks for attending this session. Goodbye.
Bye.